because a lot of the work that we have done around norm change has been very much community driven and community led, and it's grounded in that community. And as I said right at the beginning is, communities can differ so much as well, right? And what works in that community may not be able to work elsewhere. And, to get all the buy-in at each level and to be able to scale up some of these activities is a real challenge. It's something that we have not figured out yet in CIF. We are looking to work with partners to help us, figure it out, or we provide the resources for partners to figure it out so that, but it's something that we are really, interested in. But just a few comments about, this kind of work, right? When partners are resourcing it, or when we are committed to this, when governments are committed to actually making these massive changes at scale in their countries, this is a long-term vision. It's not something that we can do overnight. And that's where the major challenge is, right? Governments are usually what? 4 years, 5 years, horizon visions, right? Because they're thinking about their next election, even if it's at the community level, the community assemblymen and all, everyone is thinking about until they get to re-election and so forth. So the long-term, planning for something like this to happen and resourcing it adequately do not follow, right? And we've also got to be prepared in our community, our community of practice, that our theory of change will change also as we are working, scaling, and moving things along. And so having that flexibility and adaptability also is really important when we're thinking about scale. It's also important that, are we align us what we're trying to do with government priorities? And if it's not aligned, how do we advocate? How do we lobby to make sure it is aligned? Because very often, and I've seen it in development, us NGOs, we feel like, yep, we've got the silver bullet, we know what we're doing, and we go ahead and do it, and thinking that, okay, it's worked really well, now, I've got some resources to scale it. But is that the priority of the government? Because, we alone or a single entity can't do this work by ourselves. It needs to be a collective. It needs to have, government institution as well as civil society coming together and grassroots trying to push this agenda together. So we need to make sure that, we bring all the different actors on into one place and agree on a long-term vision and resource it appropriately. Another area we've also found a challenge in our organization is around how we do costings around this. Far too often, donor organizations want you to be able to quantify how you're going to not only measure, but how does that cost relate to an individual in social norm change. We don't have those answers. But those answers, if we did have those answers, it would be a very powerful tool to speak to different stakeholders like the Minister of Finance, because we need to stop also talking to the choir, right, about these areas. We need to be able to reach out to other groups, because once we can explain how, social norm change is going to benefit a country, your GDP is going to increase. If your women, half of your population is able to also contribute to your GDP. Your healthcare, quality of life, your agriculture, all of these areas will have a dramatic improvement if we're able to make these, changes. And so it's having those tools in a way, in a bite size, to speak to all these constituents ready for us to be able to scale and then make the arguments for scale up.